Pride and Peril is a short history of the co-opting of the LGBTQ+ community for nefarious reasons by the mafia, corporations, politicians, and even governments. Throughout history, marginalized groups have often been vulnerable to co-optation by more powerful entities with their agendas. This is especially true for the LGBTQ+ community. The tension between genuine activism and potential manipulation by more shadowy forces is not unique to this movement. From the mafia to corporations and even governments, shadowy entities have been accused of using the LGBTQ+ community to serve their nefarious goals. Furthermore, there is a long history of gay activists being extremely abusive towards people who committed the tiniest slight, while ignoring egregious abuses of the backers. The idea of bad actors within any movement exploiting the cause for personal or their patrons' organizational gain is a serious concern. It's essential to support human rights and the broader objectives of these movements. We must also critically examine and hold accountable those using the cause for selfish purposes. Ultimately, the path forward involves balancing solidarity with vigilance, supporting the rights of marginalized communities while maintaining a critical eye on those who might exploit these struggles ensures that the movement remains true to its original goals of justice and equality.
The mafia's control over LGBTQ+ bars was maintained through a combination of violence, intimidation, and corruption. They were not afraid to use force to silence dissent or eliminate competition. The 1960s saw numerous instances of mafia-related violence in and around gay bars across the country. Beatings, disappearances, and even murders served as stark reminders of the consequences of defying the mob's authority. This reign of fear extended beyond the bars themselves. The mafia's influence infiltrated local law enforcement and government officials. Bribes and threats ensured that authorities turned a blind eye to their illegal activities, further solidifying their control over the LGBTQ+ community. The atmosphere was one of oppression, leaving many feeling powerless to challenge the status quo. Drag queens, often the heart and soul of LGBTQ+ bars, faced a particularly complex relationship with the mafia. While provided a stage and a sense of belonging, they were also exploited and manipulated. The mafia recognized the entertainment value of drag performances, using them to draw in crowds and increase profits. Yet, they often denied these performers fair wages and subjected them to degrading treatment. The very art form that gave them a voice was commodified and controlled. Beyond the stage, drag queens were often pressured to engage in prostitution or act as informants for the mafia. Their vulnerability, stemming from societal prejudice and lack of legal protection, made them easy targets for exploitation. The mafia's control over their livelihoods created a system of dependence that was difficult to escape.
In the mid-20th century, being openly LGBTQ+ was dangerous. It was illegal in many places. The mafia saw an opportunity. They opened bars and clubs where LGBTQ+ people could gather. As society changed, attitudes towards the LGBTQ+ community shifted. Laws were passed and acceptance grew. Corporations recognized a new market. They began targeting LGBTQ+ consumers with tailored products and advertising. This marked a significant power shift. The mafia's influence waned. Corporations became the new gatekeepers. They held the purse strings and could influence public opinion. Then politicians and governments started exploiting the cause for their own benefit, but at a cost to the movement. But was this embrace genuine, or was it another form of exploitation? Today, corporations are eager to show their support for the LGBTQ+ community. They sponsor pride events, release rainbow-themed merchandise, and donate to LGBTQ+ charities. This is often called rainbow capitalism. While visibility is important, some argue that this support is superficial. They point out that many of these companies engage in practices that harm the LGBTQ+ community, raising questions about the true nature of their commitment.
Corporate contradictions, AT&T, Walmart, and Nike under scrutiny. Several high-profile companies illustrate these contradictions. AT&T has faced criticism for donating to anti-LGBTQ+ politicians while sponsoring Pride events. Walmart has been accused of hypocrisy for selling Pride merchandise while allegedly discriminating against LGBTQ+ employees. Nike has faced backlash for using LGBTQ+ athletes in their advertising campaigns while manufacturing products in countries with poor LGBTQ+ rights records. These examples highlight the gap between corporate pronouncements and actions.
Politicians Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden opposed gay marriage before it became popular. Politicians often justified their opposition to gay marriage by citing cultural, religious, or traditional views on marriage. This allowed them to appeal to more conservative or moderate voters. Once public opinion shifted and gay marriage became more widely accepted, especially after the Supreme Court's ruling in Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015, many politicians who had previously opposed gay marriage publicly changed their stance. After this point, some of these politicians began to frame their new support for gay marriage as a matter of equality and civil rights. And they positioned themselves as champions of LGBTQ+ rights. Once gay marriage was legalized and widely accepted, some politicians used their newfound support for marriage equality as a political weapon against their opponents. They labeled those who continued to oppose gay marriage as anti-gay, despite their previous reluctance to support the issue. This allowed them to align themselves with the winning side of a cultural issue while distancing themselves from their earlier positions. This pattern of supporting specific LGBTQ+ issues while opposing others, like gay marriage, until it became popular reflects a broader political strategy of balancing principles with electoral considerations. Once public opinion shifted, many politicians reversed their earlier positions. They used their newfound support for marriage equality to criticize opponents who remained against it, and claimed that the support of third parties who were pro-gay marriage before them was anti-gay, even if their records included opposition to gay marriage.
Foreign governments have, at times, accused US non-governmental organizations, NGOs, of using LGBTQ+ causes as a tool to destabilize local governments and even engage in espionage. These accusations often stem from political, cultural, and ideological factors, and they reflect broader concerns about Western influence and interference in domestic affairs. One example is Turkish authorities have accused US NGOs of using LGBTQ+ rights as a tool to foment social unrest and weaken the government. This narrative fits into a broader theme in Turkey, where the government has portrayed Western influence as threatening national security and stability. LGBTQ+ advocacy is seen as part of this larger Western agenda. In response, Turkey has increasingly restricted the activities of NGOs that promote LGBTQ+ rights, often framing these efforts as attacks on Turkish culture and values. The government has linked LGBTQ+ advocacy with broader accusations of Western meddling and attempts to destabilize the country, and US involvement in the issue has hurt their cause as a result.
With all of this so-called support, many LGBTQ+ individuals in the US still face discrimination, violence, and poverty at rates higher than most of the developed world. Homelessness is a significant problem, particularly among LGBTQ+ youth. Mental health disparities are another primary concern. LGBTQ+ individuals experience higher rates of depression and anxiety, and the US transgender community experiences the highest suicide rates of any demographic globally. Addressing these issues requires more than rainbow merchandise. It demands concrete action and systemic change. Throughout history, marginalized groups, including the LGBTQ+ community, have been particularly susceptible to co-optation by powerful entities with their agendas. From the mafia to corporations and even governments, these shadowy forces have been accused of using the LGBTQ+ community to further their nefarious goals. Additionally, There is a troubling history of some activists within the community being excessively punitive toward minor transgressions while turning a blind eye to the more egregious actions of their backers. The presence of bad actors within any movement who exploit the cause for personal or organizational gain is a serious concern. It is crucial to support human rights and the broader objectives of these movements while also critically examining and holding accountable those who might be using the cause for selfish purposes. Ultimately, the path forward requires balancing solidarity with vigilance. By supporting the rights of marginalized communities and maintaining a critical eye on potential exploitation, we can ensure that the movement stays true to its core goals of justice and equality.